Connor, for getting all of these set up. Kind of the thing that was really important to us from a St. Mary's Young Professionals perspective was getting some viewpoints out in the community of what is going on during this time. We're all pretty isolated, obviously, and you all have been doing a great job on social media, especially with Tommy being such a great advocate of, letting the community know what you're doing. But it is, again, it's such a word of mouth community, and we all are a bit isolated, and you only follow what you follow. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to give you all an opportunity to showcase what you've been doing, and talk a little bit about how you're managing entrepreneurship in a time of additional chaos, right? Right before this, I think you heard me talking to Connor about the fact that, entrepreneurship is risky enough as it is, but making an active choice to do additional entrepreneurship in a complete time of chaos adds in so much additional risk. And I think people aren't normally willing to do that. So I'd like to kind of have your thoughts and your opinions, and have you talk a little bit about your experiences with that. So I will turn to Matt and Tracy. If you'd like to do a quick introduction of yourself, since we are recording it, that would be great.
Good morning from virtual Barkhimer land. My name is Tracy Barkhimer. I'm a retired Navy captain. I spent 26 years in the Navy, first as a helicopter pilot and then as an acquisition professional at NavAir here in Pax River. And I recently retired within the last 6 years, worked at a small business called Lone Star Analysis, and then the Boeing company for the past 3 years. And then circumstances were such that I had to leave the Boeing company for a conflict of interest because my husband is a contracting officer at NavAir. So I decided to venture out on my own and start a single member LLC consulting company so that I could continue supporting without being a direct employee of my defense customers. And so I'm about 8 months into that, and it's been a tremendous learning experience. My first customer that I took on was Matt Hayes in UPD, because I saw a lot of really, really great potential in him, and I thought he could use some of my help. So I've partnered with him, whether he liked it or not, and now I'm supporting him as his director of program development for UPD. And I have been trying to support as best I can from home during this pandemic, where Matt is pivoting more than anyone I've ever seen and doing a fantastic job. And so I am happy to be here, and I will turn it over to Matt.
Yeah, so Matt Hayes started UPD, Unmanned Propulsion Development, about 2 years ago. Essentially was created to solve a particular issue related to larger unmanned aircraft that nobody ended up caring about. And so we kind of 2 years ago moved towards smaller unmanned aircraft and longer flight time, longer flight duration operations, the stuff that had more to do with the civilian market, but also the military market. People understood better. When the pandemic hit, I figured that we were just going to kind of hunker down, wait it out, and try and use lessons learned from the 2008 recession and to get through it. And then Tommy Luganville, I went into not quarantine, but isolation, like a little earlier than most people. It lasted for like a week, and then I guess it was like 3.5 weeks ago, Tommy gave me a call, and he was like, I need you to come in and do some review this thing. People aren't really moving fast enough. Somebody's got to start moving. Just come in here and tell us what we're doing wrong, because then other people will tell us what we're doing wrong, and we can start getting on the right path. And like a week and a half later, we had 60 engineers on this big chat thing, and we were forming a nonprofit. We had like an actual organization that was starting to deliver medical supplies to the community, and it just exploded. And so now we have Southern Maryland Loves You, or SOMD Loves You, which is a nonprofit, which is a rapid response engineering and manufacturing group in relation to the COVID-19. And it'll last through the duration of the emergency, and then we'll close it down on the other end. So I've seen way too many people and been way too many places in the last couple weeks. So we're doing the best that we can to protect ourselves and our community.
So was all of that generated via TechPort, and then you all just kind of got roped in from your experiences and by Tommy's arm twisting, or was that something that you guys had spoken along and then made it happen?
We didn't really plan it. We figured that we would all go into isolation for a while. It was really born out of Tommy's desire to do something. We saw this coming wave. We saw a lot of issues coming our way, and he kind of realized that we had a lot of capability to do things, or at least start discussions. I think he had a little frustration that TechPort was finally starting to really move and do something, and then it was going to be just like shut down. So we little arm twisting on his part. He's particularly good at that, and he's good at getting people to do the right things. And so he got me to start on it, and kind of got some of the interns working on a little bit of the social media aspects of pushing out materials. And he also brought in Dominic, who was another entrepreneur who kind of had to pivot. For those that don't know, he's a musician and performer, and as you can imagine, that there are not many performances happening right now. So yeah, he twisted our arm a little bit and said, come on in, come help with this thing. We need to get the good discussion going. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can assist with. And it started pretty simply with just reviewing a face mask design and seeing if there was any value in it, and kind of pushing out a little info, what might be possible as things get worse. And now, like 4 weeks later, that face mask design is the standard for on-base services at Pax River. And I think it's also been, we were not the designer of that, we were just kind of involved with it. I think it's now been approved by NIH for like non-medical usage. And
That's great.
yeah, so it started there, and then we kind of said, all right, what does the medical community need, and what can we do? And we opened up a Slack channel, and engineers from base that were looking for a way to do something started to kind of get directed to it. So we started inviting them in. It started growing really quickly. We realized that we were going to need some stronger organization, a way to keep track of things. So we started kind of trying to create at least different topics and categories. But we really went from just kind of sitting around and talking about face masks to like 80 plus engineers in the course of 2 weeks. And with distance, everybody being far apart, that's kind of hard to manage. Your normal team management doesn't work when you're growing that quickly, and two, when you're not face to face. So yeah, let me track the story a little bit more. We realized that we started working on a face shield project. A bunch of people that joined the group really took a strong initiative on that. They've been delivered to local users, largely the Charlottes Hall Veterans Home. And hospitals started bringing in requests and essentially orders to us. We stood up a bunch more projects. We realized that we were going to need a bank account, we were going to have to be something. Liability was going to be a big issue. So started a nonprofit. And then once we had a nonprofit, we realized that nonprofits legally have to have boards, and that we were kind of building, we had like built a powder keg. We had a lot of people, we had a lot of opinions. We were not like close to each other in order to build trust and easily cooperate together. So we didn't want to like have anything really bad come out of this. So we called on a couple people in the community to help us out, and we ended up we now have Ed Sierra and Barbara Ives as board members to kind of guide us through, like, what is a nonprofit? How does it work? How do you run one? And they can see problems coming that we're just not used to because of their experiences and backgrounds. Plus, they're very, very good people that we trust to. Basically, I brought them on so that they wouldn't allow me to screw anybody else over, right? Like, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they prevent Tommy and I from doing too much damage. And then, yeah, now we have a website, and we started to realize that reuse of materials was really important, because we started running out of everything. Like, we tried to sandblast a shipping container. The mines that create the sandblast media are shut down. We wanted to build UV sterilizers. The UV light bulbs and LEDs are out. We thought about sterilizing things with hydrogen peroxide. We can't buy hydrogen peroxide anymore. Like, everything is just, if it comes from China, we can't get it, or we're about to be out of the stores of it. So we started designing around what's locally available and can we reuse things. So then we got onto heat sanitation, and using that to kill the virus. And then that's really picked up as a major topic. And then I got like dropped into some unofficial joint task force between like the Navy and NASA that's working on heat sanitation. And we built a huge heat sanitation box that's the size of a shipping container, and we delivered it to a local hospital for testing and validation. And then we, in the last 2 weeks, we've briefed just about every national defense agency that's part of the joint COVID-19 response task force. We've briefed the White House twice. We've briefed a number of governors. It moves so quick, and we just kind of kept finding ourselves like 2 weeks ahead of the national discussion. And so we're trying to stay there and kind of lead engineering, or just get ahead of the science a little bit and help that way.
That's absolutely incredible. I know that we've spoken a little bit, but it's been little pieces. So, and then I will move over to Tracy, but just to cage everybody. So you were reviewing face mask designs when? Like
A month ago?
Okay.
2.5 weeks ago.
And so basically all of this has happened in about a month.
Yeah.
I am amazed by what you guys have been able to do. And I would like to, when we release this, you've done a great job at getting on local news channels and having a bunch of publicity. And it's really important that we make sure that people see that as well, and the really great things that you're doing. So to Tracy, because I know you've been involved with this and you're still managing UPD. So I guess my question is more from businesses that are already established, from entrepreneurial businesses that have already been established. How are you operating in this much more challenging time when everybody's focus really has turned to COVID-19? How is business doing for you in a non-COVID manner?
So the one thing that Matt didn't start with was how we ended up with Tommy. We had a relationship with Tommy, and he was trying to build Techport up in the local region, and we have both Tabasco, which is Tracy and Barkhimer Acquisition Strategies and Consulting, LLC, as well as UPD, have signed leases to move into the Techport spaces. So we were in the process of, and I probably have, I don't know, 10 boxes there now that were delivered to my office at Techport, and then COVID-19 isolation happened. And the same thing was going on with Matt and his equipment from the hangar in Lusby. So this all kind of happened right as we were moving in, and obviously that came to a screeching halt just because of the logistics and that kind of stuff. So I came home and started working from home. Matt couldn't move his company over, but we were still spending time at Techport. And the discussions started around the spaces in Techport. And Tommy is, we laugh at him twisting arms, but he is really an amazing connector and networker. And I really like working with him. So he's the one that kind of brought us all together initially to go into the Techport family, and that's how it originally spread. These guys were going into the hangars every day and the offices every day, and started talking about how they can solve some of these problems, and that's kind of how it blossomed. And Matt took it to the next level. I can't take any credit for what Matt and Tommy are doing. I just support as I can and deliver donuts when I can and that kind of stuff. But really, what I've tried to focus on is keeping Matt's company alive. And so we are working with Johns Hopkins, who is bringing Matt on board, and working on medical drones, which is a completely different area than masks and shields, but still answering the COVID-19 dilemma across the world is what they're doing. So we are still working. I drove our vehicle, our UAV vehicle, with our prototype engine that Matt developed up to Baltimore, and they have it in hand right now and are designing to produce. So we are getting ready to test that. So that's kind of where I've been focused for Matt, is to try and handle all the details and the paperwork and all that kind of stuff that has to happen with that. But Matt is the one that's doing all the stuff at Techport with Tommy. So did I answer your question, or was I rambling there for a second?
No, you're good. It's because what's really interesting, and we talked to Wynn Briscoe about this last week at hers, is the fact that it doesn't matter who you are or what product you have or what you've been doing, but the pivot, right, has been of ultimate importance for everybody. So it sounds like even within UPD, which is it's an established entrepreneurial company, but even there, you've pivoted a little bit to kind of focus on the medical drones, right? Which is just what you said. And Matt, I couldn't tell you how many times you've pivoted from your pivots, which I feel like is probably fair. But that was what Wynn had pointed out was the key driver of success in something in an environment as chaotic as it is right now. So I don't know, Matt, if you want to talk a little bit about how, from an entrepreneur's perspective, right? Because so it's important to talk about COVID and what we're doing to support that and the amazing efforts that you all have. But it's also important to use this as a learning opportunity for the future when we aren't, in worldwide chaos, to speed up how we are pivoting, to speed up how we are being entrepreneurs, and to thinking more outside the box than normal. So what have some of your lessons learned been in terms of the pivots within the pivots of a month-long multi-product adventure?
So definitely one of the things I've learned, and the board has helped me learn this, is you don't want to pivot too much, and you don't want to stand up too many programs at once. You know, you can only bring so many things under one house at a time. And what we were able to do is so just for a little background, we've been working with medical drones since August. So we've had an established relationship with them, and we've really grown to trust them, and they're a fantastic group. And they're like a startup that is within Johns Hopkins. It's kind of an interesting relationship there. And so that just happened to be pretty timely. And one of the people that's part of medical drones is the director of pathology lab at Johns Hopkins. So like they've kind of had to pivot too, right? Because he's pretty busy with the rest of his work, as you could possibly imagine. He's the co-founder there. So yeah, he handed off most of the development to the technical person, and then I handed off most of our work to Tracy. And so those two have been really making UPD work. All right, so then on our pivot, there's a lot of things that are needed right now. And if we hit all of them, it's just too much for anyone to really focus on. So I guess I've kind of been, we have in like startup world talk about like people that start things and then people that run things. And these are two different things. So Southern Maryland Loves You is like a corporate, like a big American corporation on super, super fast forward. So you normally have someone who's like really good at starting and standing up a new project. And so they'll stand up like a new division or a new project in the company, build the team, get the relationships, get it underway, spend months on that, and then they kind of transition out and then they go create something else. And they bring in a team that really knows how to maintain and operate it. We were basically doing that every 2 days, which is insane, and which is a growth model. It's like basically unsustainable, but we have a ton of people, but it's like we're now kind of like we just can't go any further. And so I would warn against pivoting too much. But yeah, on that growth curve, and this is where I think I really learned things. So this organization has jumped from being a non-organization of some people that just kind of wanted to help to an organized, like non-registered, non-profit-y kind of thing where we were really doing good and helping the community to like a manufacturer, to a heavy manufacturer, to a pseudo medical science company. And now we're kind of becoming like a lobbyist firm. And the thing that's going to follow that is like large scale manufacturing, actually. So it's kind of absurd to have gone through all those cycles. And some of those cycles only lasted like 4 days, but they were definitely major parts of the cycle. And being able to, so things that like I've learned, I've absolutely had to learn like when to stand down, when to hand off load. I feel like it's everything that the people that have run large corporations have told me like will happen, and it's all happened in like 3 weeks. So the having to make tough executive decisions that are going to alienate people and like kick them out of your organization, but if you don't do it, like the whole thing's going to crumble. Like did that. Going through a merger, done that. Having to remove leadership, done that. You know, having groups within your organization try and splinter off and lose a lot of resources, done that. Figuring out how to like control the engineering and the project development side so that they really are applying to users. It's been weird, and I'm trying to think of as many lessons I've learned, but like, yeah, one of the most critical things was realizing that there were problems that we can't engineer our way out of, and when to call in the experienced crew to lead us through that, tell us.
So if I can help you, Matt, I think, pivoting is changing direction, right? Moving or oscillating in different direction, right? And pivoting is not something you do on a daily basis or a regular basis because then you'd be doing it, right? So circumstances brought Matt to a point where he didn't have to, but he pivoted to meet the needs that are currently surrounding us. And the one thing I'm watching with him is it's not about any one person. And so he's got, and so do I. When you pivot like we're doing, he pivoted a lot more than I did. But when you pivot, you have to rely on support from other people, people who have done this, people who can help you break barriers, look outside the box, kind of stretch the rules a little bit to make things happen. So you have to have a good support group and a good team behind you in order to pivot and stand up at the same time. Anyone can pivot, but they can fall down unless they have somebody holding them up. And so, so the one thing that I'm seeing is you got to have a good support team, and you got to look beyond yourself. And sometimes, and I think Matt has seen this, that is not easy for people to do, particularly when you have type A personalities and strong personalities who know how to do other things. This is so new for all of us. So taking
Tracy froze. Uh-oh.
I know. Right in the middle of like the kicker too. I really hate to I hate to bounce off. Tracy, you froze in the middle of the end of that and your entire point after looking beyond yourself. But before you get over to that, I'm gonna have to jump off. I have another meeting I have to get to. But please feel free to continue the conversation, and especially Tommy, I know you're online. I don't know if you're available yet, but it would be great to hear from you as well on some of the entrepreneurship that you have really facilitated by bringing people together, because that's a very specific skill set not everybody has, and you're exceptionally good at it. So I want to thank you guys so much for participating today. Matt, congratulations on all the absolutely amazing things that you're doing. Tracy, thank you for all of your support to Matt and Tommy as well. So, and like I said, I hate to cut out of here, but I will watch the rest of this since we are recording it when we're done. And thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Christina.
Have fun at your day-long meeting.
Oh, thanks.
Hey, Connor, do you want me to go back and pick up where I left off? Are you gonna?
If you could, yeah.
So where did I break off?
I think you were just getting to the highlight.
Okay,
About
so
halfway through.
So, sorry guys. So we were talking about one of the definition of pivoting, right, is turning on a dime. And if you, anybody can pivot at any time. And if you don't have people holding you up or something holding you up, you can fall down very quickly. And one of the things that I think has been successful for both Matt and I, but Matt on a grander scale, is he's got a lot of support and teaming behind him, and he realizes this is not about him. And when you have that support and that teaming coming together, you can survive a pivot very successfully, because the idea of pivoting is to going back to where you originally came from, right? So this is not a long-term event for any of us, really. This is a short-term pivot. Let's succeed on the way. We need a lot of people to help us. He is great at bringing those people together and creating a team. And so I think looking beyond yourself, like Matt is doing, and realizing it's not just about one person is what is helping him be successful. And not a lot of people can do that, particularly in our environment where you have a lot of type A personalities. who like to run things on their own. You have to realize that this is not about one person, this is about a team. And I think Matt is doing a great job at actually corralling the team and helping focus them. And then I like to call Tommy the maestro. And Tommy is the great maestro who is creating this beautiful music, and we are but instruments in that orchestra.
I think that last comment's pretty true. And like I'm definitely the founder of the nonprofit organization, but he definitely got it started. And the reason why the nonprofit and its members have been on TV and whatnot are because of him. He's been able to use a lot of the tools that he has to move this effort forward. And you know, the connection with Techport and the Navy and the university were very valuable things that he could draw on and push and move. Yeah, and we definitely have some type A personalities, which can be super valuable, and that's something that we had to learn really quickly about managing them. Again, going back to corporate America, but on super fast forward, you had always kind of known you have people that are very good at people that like, all right, so in the startup world, there's this trend that we're all very aware of, wherein the founder gets fired. Like somewhere between 2 and 5 years in, the founder is fired. It sucks, but it's something that we have just kind of learned to recognize as a trend. Like eventually, maybe you get acquired or you sell off enough of the stock. The founder is the strong go-getter type A personality that's constantly building new things. And then eventually they want to keep doing new things, but then the board is like, hold on, no, we got to like stay the course to actually make money off of this. We can't just keep running off of like investment money, you know, and so that's normally like a couple year cycle. With this, Southern Maryland Loves You, that cycle's now 1 week. And so the people that are the most willing and a lot of times the most capable and interested in jumping in and helping and really wanting to do good and having the ability to take something from nothing to something of high value are often that same personality or that same person. And so, yeah, that's a tough thing to kind of grapple with. And I recognized that like, I was one of those people. And I recognized it kind of early on, which is why I went to some of the retired base leadership and I was like, hey, I'm going to need a board or I'm going to need somebody to like manage a lot of these decisions and tell me when I'm about to like really screw this up or, you know, dampen all of this, and to protect people from potentially me, you know? Yeah, so I kind of like tried to fire myself first, and I've been working on that. I guess I fired myself from one role, but I now have 3 major roles, so I got to fire myself from at least one more in the next week and a half, or else it's going to get really bad. It's just not be able to keep up. I mean, it's already like I can't get all of it done as it stands, and so working on finding some people to take some of those other roles. But they're all full-time roles, and everybody's working from home, and you're going out in the line of the virus, so they're not something that you can ask of everybody.
Yeah, I love what you said about founders and how they often get fired 3 to 5 years in. We see that pretty often in the nonprofit sector, and often when organizations keep their founders, sometimes indefinitely, it leads to organizations that often more resemble the founder and less the strategic needs of the community or the market that they serve. So that was great, and good luck with firing yourself from one of those roles. Lindsay, Destiny, or Tommy, do you have any questions for Tracy and Matt?
No, I'm just excited to hear what they've been doing. Because every time I get on Facebook, like they're on the news again. I'm like, what the heck, you busy beavers? And like every time like they're on the news, Matt's beard is just like a little bit longer. So I'm like, oh, he's definitely not sleeping.
Shorter now.
I saw he shaved specifically for today.
Yeah, and I really don't show up much for the news, and I don't dress for it. And I've kind of said, like, I don't really, like, put the focus on the people that are, like, really doing the core work, and promote them, and try to make me not too much of a public figure. But for those that aren't aware, a lot of the video footage that shows up on the news is actually filmed by Dominic Fragman, and quite
awesome.
consistently the best footage. So, yeah, a lot of times I don't even know that he's filming. He's just there and he's doing his thing, and then he sends off the packet to the news company, and then they do like a little interview with me for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then they use all of Dominic's footage.
That's awesome. Oh, so do you have you gotten like test results, like official test results back from the hospital? Like I saw something about it, but I didn't know if you had like enough information to start like mass manufacturing yet.
That is like, we're trying to do that. It's a can of worms. The one test that we really, really want to do, that's the most important one, takes like a week. It uses cultures of primate lung tissue samples, and it involves culturing and growing the virus, which is currently illegal. So I'm sure, you know, that Johns Hopkins and Walter Reed have exceptions on that, but like we can't just do it anywhere. And then there's a ton of questions about, do the other test methods really validate it? And if they do, are we stealing tests that would otherwise be used to help people that need it today? And so we're going through a lot of that now, and that was kind of where we realized, we were like, wow, okay, now we're a lobbying organization. So now we're connected to like high power lobbyists and attorneys, and we're working through a lot of that, and we're trying to find short versions. And to be honest, the actual virus has very limited test data on it. I mean, the DNA for it, we really only understood what we were dealing with for the first time in early January, when the genome sequence was sequenced in China. So, you know, like, okay, so there was some like understanding of it before then, but like, I mean, I was on a call like 3 weeks ago with a professor of, I forget his official title, but professor of medicine, and he was like, yeah, we don't really even know like the diameter of the virus yet. So, yeah, we're kind of having to get into the testing area to really move things forward. And then what is a valuable test, and what's the FDA going to accept, and what happens as it gets worse, and does the FDA's control start to fall apart, or yeah, it gets
Do you have an estimate on how long it's going to be before you can start manufacturing? And then what are you doing until then?
Well, so what it does is it leads, as far, we're already manufacturing a bunch of smaller things. Or I should say the team is manufacturing a lot of things that are being distributed to hospitals. Face shields has been one of the major ones.
Okay.
They've also been working in some other personal protective equipment, face masks, and they're standing up efforts right now for PAPR hoods, which we expect to be out of stock soon, and medical gowns, which have been running out. As you've seen, people are wearing trash bags, and so they're trying to find resources in those territories right now. For the heat sanitation module,
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to stand up manufacturing. We have a local manufacturer who donated the materials. We had two companies that donated the materials for the first unit, and that's Triton Defense and Birch Oil, which is really awesome of the two of them, and super appreciative. And but really, like, they're not cheap, and it kind of relies on the orders, and the main orders are going to be like local government entities, it looks like, which get their money from the state as it gets budgeted to them, and it has to move through systems to get there. And then that came from, I think, the federal government, and it has to go through those systems to get there. The point is, it did not. We have unfortunately had to learn that there are things that take time. We can engineer very, very quickly, but there are a lot of other things that take time. Which
Cool. So
really,
how long until you sit down with Hogan?
I don't know, but one of his representatives has been involved in the group since day one. He's
Okay.
helped us a ton, like a whole lot. I can't even
All right. So like in the near future, we'll see a picture of you like bumping elbows with like Governor Hogan.
Or maybe somebody else on the team. I might be fired from my role before then. But yeah, so manufacturing, basically we have to get the orders, and then to get the orders, we have to either convince the local organizations to buy it, which I think we largely have, and then to distribute larger. Really what we want to do, we gotta protect Southern Maryland, right? Like, that's our purpose, that's why we're here. But we also want this stuff to get used far and wide. And so local orders will allow local manufacturing of it. Following FDA regulations will keep us in check and make sure that we're building something that's valuable, useful, and good. And then FDA acceptance will allow it to be widespread. And we're not necessarily even, we're kind of standing up the FDA acceptance side right now while other organizations are doing the research and standing up a lot of the science behind, like, I shouldn't say the science, but they're proving the value, right? Like, how quickly does the rubber strap degrade? Like, that's important information. And so other organizations are working on that very quickly. And so we took on the manufacturing FDA acceptance. So we may end up like changing our design to somebody else's design and then using our resources to push it through. Like, I don't know. We're figuring that out. We like our design and we want to manufacture it in mass locally with local manufacturers. But like, it's a race to see who can do best. And like, I hate to say it, but if somebody has like a much better design than us, we'll take all our resources and momentum and like combine it with theirs. So, because we got to get the heat-based sanitation through FDA. Like, that's just like critical for the nation.
So Matt, right now, I have some friends who are in the medical equipment business, and they are also, I'm watching them also pivot and do things differently, like ventilate rooms and stuff like that with negative pressure. It sounds like they're sterilizing using chlorine dioxide gas. What kinds of things do you still need besides human tissue that will help you get the heat box, for lack of a better term, approved for use across different programs?
I would say the biggest needs that we have right now, well, the first thing I'll say, our needs change like daily to hourly. So, we have needs, and then we find solutions, and then we have new needs, and these things are constantly jumping. And so within the context of the heat sanitation unit, which is just a piece of Southern Maryland Loves You, we have to have a tracking system, like a cycle certification. You put your face mask in it, it goes through a cycle. At the end of the cycle, you have positive identification that like it worked. And the FDA is used to taking extremophiles, like bacteria that live in the most ridiculous of circumstances, and putting them in a little capsule, and then like attaching that to the item, and then running the cycle, and then checking to make sure that they're all dead afterwards. And the kind of what's happened, the whole point behind the heat sanitation unit is that it doesn't kill 100% of things. It kills like 99.999% of things, which is different from what the FDA typically, gives a thumbs up to. So like we don't kill the bacteria that lives on hydrothermal vents at the bottom of the ocean. We don't kill the bacteria that's in the like the Yellowstone Park, and a handful of other things, but we've been trying to compile a list of like what it doesn't kill, and then cross that with things that are known to cause diseases in humans. We like don't really have that yet. So yeah, we're basically saying take one step back or a half step back, and so that leaves us in a weird spot on certification, because I can't buy a device like a little single-use tab that's going to certify it, because it's a different process. And the major manufacturers of those just released a hydrogen peroxide-based sanitation system, so that puts us as a direct competitor to their new major market. So we can't necessarily rely on them to be super helpful either. And then we're working on this now, but it's going to be a legal push to get these methods accepted. And look, as we run out of PPE, that's the legal side becomes more and more important. Like I can get them in Southern Maryland and have them be valuable on our own elbow grease, but we can't go beyond that without the FDA. So, or what I should say, we can go beyond that, but it's after all the existing systems have collapsed, and that picture is very bad. And we don't want to do that.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Lindsay said. Like, what you're doing right now is amazing. So like I said, like every week I see something else in the news, or Tommy sends a clip or sends information about what's going on, and it's really amazing how fast you all have come together and done this and did this. I know you talked about this in the beginning, but it's pretty remarkable, and just to be able to share that with people and see what happens when the community comes together, a bunch of entrepreneurs and innovators come together for a crisis. It's amazing. So I just wanted to give you kudos for that, because that was awesome. That is awesome, and keep up the great work.
I really appreciate it, but I also want to say that my piece of this is I kind of created like the pieces of the organization, not necessarily even the organizational structure, but just like created the Slack channel that everybody that wanted to help jumped on, and I created the nonprofit that is like the legal structure that allows it to have a bank account, reimburse expenses and provide some legal cover. And then my technical item has been the heat sanitation module. Everything else that you've been hearing out of this organization is somebody else. The whole actually organizing everybody and getting people like pointed in a direction and making everything happen, and basically everything that's ended up on the news, the actual manufacturing, creation of every device that we've delivered, actually delivering stuff, teaching me how to do any of those things, protecting everybody so that if this whole thing goes down in a terrible fire, nobody that's helped us from on base loses their jobs. All of that's somebody else in this organization. All of that is,
I know I jumped in a little late. Did you guys talk about how you're funded? Is it 100% donations? Like, how does that work? Because you talked about reimbursement and, protecting everyone. Like, how are you getting money for this? I know there's donations and things like that.
All right, so we actually got a bank account like Thursday. So there's been like one business day since we have had a bank account, right? We had like $25 in it, yay! It's been all donations. It has been run by taking in. It's been all donations, and it hasn't really been cash donations. It's been material donations, right? Getting people to donate steel, oil, heating furnaces, plastic, time, legal assistance. It's pretty much all donations. Now, we kind of set a plan with the heat sanitation unit. We realized the value of it and that it was going to save everybody that gets one a ton of money if it goes through. So we figured that we would make sure to end up cash positive so that we could use that to fund the other efforts and help in other ways. But so far, it's basically just been people donating materials and time. And like, we still don't have a financial management person. We're working on that right now. Hopefully we'll have something very soon. But like, yeah, we flashed together the organization so quickly and it just kind of happened.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have a financial person at SMYP either. So if you find somebody, let us know. But before we wrap up today, what's some final tips or final pieces of advice or suggestions for emerging entrepreneurs you might have in Southern Maryland?
Emerging entrepreneurs. We've had a really strong, so there's been a good entrepreneur community down here for a long time, just not well known. For example, the Jordans are just incredible and have been like kind of going this route for a long time before any of us were in on it. Now it's kind of starting to coalesce around Techport as a resource, or at least like a meeting location. And I would highly recommend anybody that wants to do any entrepreneurial activity get involved with kind of that local entrepreneur group, which I guess we kind of hang out at Techport, Southern Maryland Young Professionals, and Southern Maryland Innovates. I don't know if we really have our own, that's just where you tend to find them in my experience. And they're a big help because this region is insanely capable and has an enormous amount of resources, but it's so used to the structured military means, which is very different from how we have to operate things. So yeah, reach out, make friends, find people, learn from their mistakes.
All right. Thanks, Matt. And Tracy, I think you get the final word.
Oh my, such pressure. I would say I would concur with what Matt said, but I would also say for young entrepreneurs, be open to new ideas. One of the best things about this team is it consists of people from all different backgrounds who don't all think alike. And very often in my career, I have seen groupthink, in the Navy, that kind of stuff, far too often, which tends to stifle innovation. So having this diverse background and support network for Tommy and Matt, I think, is one of the most positive aspects, and why it's working so well is everybody is contributing in their own way and bringing new ideas to the table, which is how they're moving so fast.
All right, thanks. So I think that that'll be it for today, since we've been here for about an hour. So big thank you to Tracy and Matt for joining us today as our special guests, and thanks to Lindsay, Destiny, and Tommy for joining us otherwise, and of course Christina, who was here earlier and bounced off. Next week on Wednesday,